Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for joining here at Unapologetic Progressive. Once again, I am back with a video, and this time we're going to talk about Donald Trump and what he's doing with the farmers. Today, Donald Trump announced a $12 billion farm aid plan to help bail out farmers across America. Now, farmers are in desperate need right now. They definitely need this $12 billion because they've seen multi-billion dollar declines in revenue ever since Donald Trump took office, pretty much, since about February or so after Trump took office. Now, why is this? Why is this even happening? Why is it even necessary for us to have a $12 billion package for the farmers? Because of his tariffs. That's simply put, that's how it is. The whole reason for why the farmers need this bailout is because of Donald Trump's policies in the first place. He is literally going to wipe out the majority of what he has earned or raised in tariffs to pay the farmers so they don't go bankrupt. And why are they going bankrupt? It's a giant circle, isn't it? Because of the tariffs. Now, if you remember back in his first term as president, Donald Trump did some policy moves that crushed the farmers then too, after they voted for him. If you remember, there was like an $18 billion bailout that had to be given to the farmers back in 2018 because of what his tax bill did. And that's what's going on. So back in 2018, same thing happened. The farmers were falling apart. They were going bankrupt because of Donald Trump's policies. And again, now in 2025, with Donald Trump as president, the farmers are failing again. Many of them voted for Donald Trump. Now, if it wasn't for the fact that these people make the food that Americans eat, I probably wouldn't care. I'd say let them starve, but the American people don't deserve to starve just because one idiot wins the White House. Donald Trump has purposely done this. For example, the soybean market. The soybean market is now below $11 a bushel for the first time in over a decade, I believe it said. And this is all because China has cut off purchasing US soybeans. China is the biggest importer of soybeans in the entire world. We were, up until Donald Trump slapped these huge tariffs on China, we were the #1 exporter of soybeans in the world. That has now been changed to Argentina. Remember, Donald Trump also gave Argentina a $40 billion bailout. First it was $20 billion, then they bumped it to $40 billion. And guess what Argentina did with that? Argentina took that $40 billion and said, oh, look at that. We can take our tariffs to zero on China. And that's what they did. And China bought all their soybeans that they needed from Argentina. In fact, they bought out basically all the soybeans that Argentina had that wasn't being sent somewhere else, making it to where they don't need us anymore. They don't need the soybean farmer. They don't need American farmers at all. They don't need American products. They have other places around the world where they can get them easier without dealing with a lunatic. And that is what's going on right now in the world of politics. Donald Trump does stupid shit and then expects the rest of us to suck it up and deal with it. And he's doing it to you, the American taxpayer. Where do you think that $12 billion is coming from? You're either paying for it through your taxes or you're paying for it because the prices have increased because of the tariffs. So there's no doubt in my mind what's going on here. This is just yet another way Donald Trump is going to act as if he's done something great. Look, I helped the farmers. Look, I helped them. Sir, you caused it. Did you ever watch that TV show, that little cartoon, Jimmy Neutron? Or watch the movie? If you ever noticed throughout the TV series, if you ever watched that, or hell, even the movie, Jimmy always saved the day. Every single time, Jimmy saved the day. But he also caused every single crisis that the people of Retroville dealt with. He caused every single crisis. It's one of my favorite shows, but the star of the show is literally the one that causes all the problems. And then he makes like miraculously like he's some genius because he solved it. And that's what we have going on right now in the White House. We have a man who is destroying this country, and then anytime he does anything to help anyone, he's like, look, I helped, without telling you, oh yeah, I caused it. And unfortunately, we have another 3 years of this at minimum. Because who knows what's going to happen in 2020 between now and 2028? Will there be an election in 2028? I don't know. Will there be one in 2026? I don't know. Because the fact is, with all the criminal stuff Donald Trump has done in just the first 11 months of his tenure as president this time around, if the Democrats happen to win the elections in 2026, Donald Trump is toast. Many Republicans are toast if that election is allowed to take place. And I don't mean they're going to lose their seats. I mean they're going to lose their freedom because many of them have colluded with Donald Trump to commit crimes and have concluded with him and conspired with him to create a situation where basically he he allows people to buy access to power. All things against the law, even for a president. I don't care what any of you MAGA folks think out there about it. The fact is, the president is not above the law. Richard Nixon wasn't above the law. He was going to be impeached and removed from office before he resigned. Because at least, even though Richard Nixon was corrupt, at least Richard Nixon had the respect for the country to step aside when he knew he brought embarrassment to this country. That's more than I can say for Bill Clinton or more than I can say for Donald Trump. But that's what's going on right now. Donald Trump is creating messes and then being like, I solved it. No, you didn't solve it. You caused it. They need the 12 billion now. Okay, sure. What are they going to need in 6 months? Another 12 million or billion? And then 9 months after that, another 12 billion and another 12 billion because your stupid tariffs are causing prices to plummet where they can't make ends meet? If you're one of those American farmers that voted for Donald Trump and voted for Republicans, how do you feel now? How are you feeling now? Because right now, you seem to be in the FO part of the FAFO. Many of you caused this. Many of you farmers out there crying for help right now, you caused this. You put this in the White House. Not all of you, but many of you, the majority of you, especially the farmers who are straight and white. Because by and large, that population of people voted for Donald Trump. Even the women, with Donald Trump claiming he was going to get rid of all their rights. In Project 2025, they laid out how women would no longer be allowed to have bank accounts, credit cards, buy businesses or homes by themselves. This is what they laid out in Project 2025. They also laid out in Project 2025 how they were going to make it to where women couldn't get birth control without their husband's approval or their boyfriend's approval, however that may go. And millions of white women across this country and their husbands voted for Donald Trump. And almost the majority, like 90% of the farmers in this country that are white, voted for Donald J. Trump. And I don't get it. I don't want to get it. I don't want to understand how you could fall for it again. Many of you farmers that voted for Donald Trump in 2024, and you voted for him in 2016 as well, and you got shafted in that first presidency of his. But he shows up and you vote for him again? When you had a candidate, Kamala Harris, who had vowed to make sure that you were able to function? So they're going to create funds to help you, navigate the changing, economic landscape. She had a plan in place to help create funds so family farmers don't lose their farms. And you voted against it. And now all of us have to suffer. And now all of us have to pay for your mistake of trusting a lunatic. Kamala Harris had a solution for a lot of the problems we're dealing with. She laid out in the debate how she would help bring down inflation, how she would help more Americans have homes, and how she would help American farmers. But you chose to go with Donald Trump because he hated who you hate. He hated trans people, told you to hate trans people, so you did. He told you to hate immigrants, so you did. He told you to hate black and brown people, so you did. And then you voted for him. Yeah, if I sound bitter, it's because I am. People like me, people in the trans community, are having a hard time being able to get the care we need because of the bills that and executive orders that Donald Trump has signed. Look at what he's done to Hispanic people and anybody that happens to be brown skinned. And now he's going after Somalis. After one of the largest populations of Somalis and Muslims in the United States, in Minnesota, got up there with their full chest and gave their endorsement to Donald J. Trump. But at the end of the day, the reason the farmers need this bailout is because Donald Trump is a failed politician, a failed president. He is a failure. He has not only failed himself, he has failed this country. He should be impeached for that alone, for the fact that he is a failure. Unfortunately, in the Constitution, it lays out you have to have committed high crimes or misdemeanors. So you can't be impeached for just being an idiot and failing your nation. What's crazy is right now there are Democrats right now talking about how if George W. Bush was allowed to run against Donald Trump, like say right now, they would vote for George W. Bush. And do you remember how much Democrats hated George W. Bush? I'm one of them. Now, I wasn't making content anywhere back then. Back in the Trump years, I was talking about it on things like MySpace, but I wasn't making content. But I absolutely despised George W. Bush. And I still today think would have been a better president than Donald Trump could ever be. And remember, George W. Bush is a war criminal. So is Donald Trump. They're not that far removed. But the one thing I do know is that George W. Bush would have never put the American farmers in a place where they had to beg the government for money. George W. Bush would have never done the things he has done that Donald Trump has done. He just wouldn't have. For all the failures of the George W. Bush administration, at least he wasn't a fascist, and at least he didn't go attacking people, right? He knew that trans people existed. He didn't attack us. He knew the LGBTQ community existed. He didn't really attack us. Now, were there some funding cuts to certain LGBT things over the years? I believe there were. But was it an outright attack on our existence, on our rights as members of the LGBTQ community? No. Was he hurting the farmers? No. But Donald Trump has failed this nation. He has failed the American farmer, and he's failed American families. Keep that in mind as we move closer to the 2026 elections. See you down the road.